That was the last time I do it. Tomorrow I stop completely and start fresh. I'll never do this again. How many times did you promise yourself that you were going to never watch pornography again? And with all your heart, when you made that promise, it felt so true, only to find yourself back to pornography a few days later. In this video, I'm going to explain why just deciding that you're going to stop watching pornography, a method also known as going cold turkey, has little chances of working when it comes to pornography, and why it's probably not the right technique for you. And at the very end, I will share with you some secrets about what I do with my clients so they actually get better in as little as 3 weeks on their way to quit pornography. Hi everyone, my name is Dimitri. I'm a psychotherapist and a recovered addict to pornography and sex, and I help men quit pornography using therapy. So in this video, I'm not talking about semen retention and the various aspects, positive and negative, of semen retention or the associated techniques, and not talking specifically about NoFap, no PMO, although by extension I'm talking a little bit about it because that's the method in this community. But if you'd like to know more about NoFap, no PMO, I've made a video on this topic right here. So going cold turkey is quite a strange expression. It comes back from the 1920s when opioid addicts were presenting withdrawal symptoms and they're having cold sweats and goosebumps. And so it reminded people of a turkey that would be cold. The other way to talk about this method or technique, the more medical way, is abrupt cessation or abrupt withdrawal. Now, making a video to explain why going cold turkey is probably not the best method to quit pornography, I also need to acknowledge that some people have overcome their addiction by going cold turkey. So here, my goal is not to say that you should not go into withdrawal and completely stop from watching pornography. It is definitely something you can try, but I'm mostly making this video because if you keep experiencing issues of relapse within your withdrawals every time you go cold turkey, then it's time to try something new. And I feel really strongly about this. I feel that addiction is very misunderstood, that even within the medical community, it's actually very hard to find actual numbers on the success rate of withdrawal as a method from addiction in the research literature. Probably a few reasons for that, one of them being that it's pretty hard to tell when someone has recovered from an addiction or not. Does it work in terms of time frame, or does it work in terms of how they feel? And before I make a video explaining why it's not a good idea to persist in going cold turkey if it's not been working for you, I want to acknowledge that, hey, going cold turkey is free. You can just do it on your own, and it's a very intuitive method. Okay, the problem is that you're watching pornography and you're trying to not watch pornography anymore. So of course, you're going to tackle the behavior of pornography because that's what's bothering you. But my message for you here is that behavior is just a symptom of a deeper hurt, a deeper problem. And if you can tackle the root cause of the addiction, you will go a lot further than just trying to tackle the consequence. All right, the first issue about going cold turkey is that this is a method that's going to induce a lot of shame and judgment and hopelessness. Okay, let us know in the comments below, what are the things that you're telling yourself when you relapse, when you're decided to not watch pornography and you're watching pornography again. What do you tell yourself? How do you feel? There is so much despair. There is so much self-hatred. There is so much self-harm in this, and we're telling ourselves that we're weak and that we have no discipline and that we're bad people, and it's so hurtful. Just for me to think about that and I was thinking at the time when I was addicted and trying that out, it is so hurtful, and I feel so much sympathy for you as well if you're going through that at the moment, because this is just unnecessary. You're just creating a lot of hurt and a lot of guilt by creating all these judgments upon yourself. You want to be your best friend in this process. You're suffering from a form of psychological condition, which is an addiction to pornography. So please be compassionate with yourself and forgive yourself for the time when you slip, especially because you're probably using a method that is quite inefficient, and try to have love and compassion for yourself and to persist and educate yourself. But these very hard words that you tell yourself, please don't say that to yourself. You would never say that. If your friend of yours had relapsed and was in the exact same situation would you say those things to them? Would you say you're so hopeless, you're worthless, you P of S, etc., etc.? You would never say that. So please don't say this to yourself either. It's not helping you, it's hurting you. And the issue that I have with this method of going cold turkey is that it's a method based on discipline. All right. So what do you do if you have no discipline? I know for a fact that I'm someone who's got zero discipline within me. I do things out of passion. I do things out of enthusiasm. I do things out of wanting to help people. I don't do things out of discipline. Discipline makes no sense to me. And imposing yourself this form of authority that is coming in the form of the strong words that we just described earlier is supposed to be helping you, but it's not helping you. On top of that, there is this discipline is feeding the ego. There's this idea that the more discipline you have, the more masculine you are, that you're a better man when you show discipline, etc., etc. I have very little discipline. I don't feel less masculine because of that. I just found my way through my own notion of masculinity. So there's these big shortcuts just in the mainstream general culture, which is not an issue, but then it's that if you've got no discipline, then you're not masculine. That is not the case. If you keep on relapsing and watching pornography, it's not because you're not masculine enough or you're not strong enough. Is that because you're relying on discipline, but discipline itself is not going to tackle the symptom of you watching pornography because it has a deeper root. And so if we think about why do we watch pornography in the first place, a lot of people watch pornography because they are going through a lot of sexual frustration because their sexual needs are not met. And one of the reasons why these needs are not met is because those people are not able to express themselves sexually because there is a lot of sexual repression in their life. Okay, so by adding the constraint of not watching pornography, possibly not masturbating, not climaxing, you're adding more sexual repression on top of the sexual repression that is already there. So how much sexual repression can you endure as a person before something happens? I think it's very healthy that you promise yourself to not watch pornography again, but then you do it and you do climax, and that provides you with some relief and soothing what you're going through. Otherwise, how much of a mental breakdown would you have if you just put repression, on top of judgment, on top of religious condemnation, on top of whatever it is you're experiencing, secrecy and shame? How much can one person endure when it comes to their sexual expression? Of course, you're going to watch pornography again, and it's probably the healthier outlet rather than you going to a complete nervous breakdown or having some big psychological illness coming out of this. Beyond the problems of the method itself, one of the big issues is that the goal is too hard. The goal of watching pornography seems like a very, healthy, simple, casual goal. And we make a promise to ourselves at the beginning, and then as time goes, we realize that we're kind of entrapped in this pornography thing, and we can't actually let go of pornography. So if you haven't succeeded in stopping to watch pornography after so many months, so many years, it's probably that the attachment to pornography is very strong, probably a lot stronger than you first evaluated, and it is time to change the goal or to change the method, or in fact to change all of that together and to change your whole process about how you're going to quit pornography. So the goal of not watching pornography is too hard. What is the goal that you can use instead of not watching pornography? The goal is not to not watch pornography. The goal is to get better with pornography. The goal is to get better. That eventually, maybe down the line, you will stop watching pornography, but that you are watching less pornography, that you feel less called to watch pornography, that you have less sexual imagery flashing into your mental space throughout the day. This is called getting better. The result you want is to get better. Not watching pornography is the very end of the process, and it's like trying to build a house starting from the roof. It's not going to work. Another issue is that when you are going cold turkey and you relapse and you watch pornography again, you lose everything. You lose everything. So if you had not been watching pornography for 26 days and you relapse on day 27, you have lost everything. All the pain, all the shame, all the determination, all the promises, all the hard work, all the discipline, all the hopes, everything that you put in there to get you there is suddenly lost. And in this process, in these 27 days, you haven't really done dynamically anything that's going to help you in the future. You're going to have to go through the same process again of promising, of pain, of fear, of pushing yourself, hard-knuckling your way through fighting your own impulses and your own behavior. How hard can this be? You lose everything, as opposed to a method like therapy where you get to know yourself, where you get to discover step by step, making good progress. And then if there is a little bit of a crisis, you can maybe one step back, but you don't go all the way back here because there is no structure to this method of recovery and healing. If you lose the momentum and you relapse, you lose everything that you've put into this remission. And how sad is this? On top of that, there is a real notion of entrapment. If this is the only method you know, you're going to be stuck in a cycle of relapse and remission, relapse and remission, or relapse and withdrawal. And this is really what traps people into becoming hopeless. That every time they think they're getting better, they think they're doing good, and they just keep on relapsing, and they promise themselves, or they're being promised, that if they keep doing that, it's going to get better as time goes. The thing is that it's not going to get better because you're starting from scratch at every time without any checkpoints, a bit of gamification here, without any checkpoint in the middle. And so how can you keep on making progress if you don't have a stable foundation to evolve from? And sure, there's a lot of talks about when you're going cold turkey, there is the brain rewiring, there is dopamine reprogramming and all these sorts of things. But these effects really depend from person to person. And if you're not someone who's really good on discipline, these can be very minor, and you're going to be trapped in this cycle with no tangible effect. We're going to be trapped in this cycle with no tangible results and really nowhere to go from there. A quick comment as well about porn blockers or porn filters. You may have heard about these apps that help you not watch pornography. Generally, there is a password, or someone needs to have access, or someone else is informed that you're watching pornography and they can let you in or not, etc., etc. I would say these are rather inefficient systems. They will certainly not make you quit pornography. The only thing that they will do is to slow you down. So in that space where you're feeling triggered and you desperately want to watch pornography, and the moment when you're actually going to be consuming pornography, there is a gap. That gap can be a millisecond if you're in front of a keyboard and you just switch tab and off you are, or that gap can be maybe a few seconds, maybe a few minutes. This gap is the moment when you can make a decision for yourself. It's the difference between reacting and responding. If something happens and instantly you just react, that's your primitive natural behavior. If you respond, is that there's a stimulus, you think about it, you process the information, then you respond. So then if you're in front of your computer or your phone and you want to watch pornography, and you have just reacted. If you feel triggered, observe that you're feeling triggered, try to make a decision about what you're going to do, then you're responding. So the porn blockers, the porn filters are good in this way that they're going to give you more time to think about your decision. And are you going to really want to watch pornography? Now, unfortunately, this sounds like a pretty good deal. Unfortunately, if you're feeling triggered, you're 99% out of the time decide that you are going to indeed watch pornography. And I remember when I was addicted myself, I could spend many minutes, possibly hours, if there was something on the way between me and pornography, to try and do everything I could so that this access would be fixed. All right, it becomes a single obsession, a single goal, and that's what we're going to do. So even though it is buying you more time, in that space when you're triggered, you actually don't have a whole lot of movement to make the right decision, and very much you're going to be watching pornography at the end. And finally, another reason why it's very hard to use this method of going cold turkey to quit pornography is because of the withdrawal symptoms. Anybody who's trying to move away from an addictive behavior will be going through some withdrawal. It happens with cigarettes, it happens with drugs, it happens with alcohol. And the extent to which it applies to screens is not yet very understood. That people who are addicted to video games, people who are addicted to social media, and people who are addicted to pornography and sex to a larger extent, you know how you feel in those moments when you're craving that act so bad. There's actual symptoms themselves. I had a lot of clients report suffering from mental fog when they're watching pornography and then they stop. Suddenly they're not able to think and they're feeling really out of it. I never had withdrawal symptoms from pornography personally, but I know a lot of my clients have experienced that. In addition to the withdrawal symptoms that are present, it is so difficult to fight that. And you find yourself in a lesser position, or you find yourself less able to combat the cravings because you're suffering from the withdrawal symptoms on top of that. Read an article the other day that talked about the psychological craving that you have within an addiction. If you've gone through an addiction yourself, you know that these cravings are not only psychological, is your entire body is craving those stimulation. It is in your mind, but it's also in your body. You've got the tensions in your body. You've got your whole attention and your whole being are driven towards that. It is such a strong impulse that is so difficult to fight that you've got so little chances to be in a position of power over your cravings when you're in that moment. And one thing I want to say, and I'm going to surprise myself here saying this, but it's of course, if you've never tried going cold turkey to quit pornography, it is worth trying it. It is worth trying. And you can try it for 1 week, and you can try it for 1 month, and you can try it for maybe 1 year. But if you see that you're unsuccessful after a year, if you see that you're not making progress after a year, then it is time to change. If you're suddenly stop watching pornography, congratulations, that's amazing. You've done it. Happy you, well done you. But if you keep on experiencing issues, it is time to do something else than just trying to go cold turkey. All right, so I've been sharing with you that the most intuitive, free, most natural method for quitting pornography, going cold turkey, withdrawal, is actually not so helpful, or if it is failing, it is time to try something else. So what can you do instead of going cold turkey if you have the active goal of wanting to quit pornography in the near future? As I said earlier, the goal is not to not watch pornography, which is the very end of the process, but the goal is to get better. And one way to get better that is really efficient is to stop watching pornography progressively. To stop watching pornography progressively, this is known as tapering. In the medical field of addiction, this is known as tapering. And tapering means that you're going to try and watch less quantity of pornography throughout your week. So suddenly you have a little bit of space to cool down and to express yourself. It's not about no pornography whatsoever. It's about, hey, diminishing how much pornography you're watching and observing yourself in this process. In fact, sharing with you this very odd thing that I do with my clients, when they sign up on the first week of their program with me, the first thing I tell them is that you're going to book in a time in your calendar to watch pornography. That's what the clients who are still watching pornography regularly, and I tell them, make a time in your calendar, book this time and say you're going to spend 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it is for you, 15 minutes, watching pornography. I check in with the client and I say, so how did you do? And they say, well, this week I have not watched pornography. And every time it is the same thing, that on the first week, my clients don't watch pornography. Even though it is not the goal that they don't watch pornography, when you give people the space and the permission to actually watch pornography, suddenly they will be able to observe themselves. They will be able to be in control of what they actually want to do. Suddenly you lift the repression and you're allowing positive things to happen. All right, so tapering, reducing the quantity of pornography you watch, giving yourself a little bit more permission is actually going to make you feel better and you will see positive results. Now, tapering is a nice way to do it. The way that I use that is a bit different to tapering, which is my own version of tapering, which I think is the really best way to do it, is what I call qualitative tapering. So we're not looking into reducing the quantity of pornography and forcing that. You want that to happen on its own, but we're doing qualitative tapering. That means that we are reducing the quality of pornography that we are watching. The reason why we watch pornography is because our experience with pornography is really good. It's 100% perfect. And so our brain is like, well, that was really amazing. Let's do that again tomorrow or in 15 minutes or next week. But if we engage with pornography and we don't make that experience 100% perfect, and we make it that it's kind of good, but also not really incredible, your brain's going to go, meh, that was kind of cool, but don't need that so much. Maybe we can do something else like playing basketball or vacuuming the floor or whatever else it is that you need to do in your life. So with qualitative tapering, we're trying to make the experience with pornography less good. And instead of your experience being 100% good, it can be 80% good, it can be 70% good, it can be 50% good. And after a while, you're going to be watching pornography and think, this is pretty boring. Like there's many things I could do that would feel better than that and that are actually fruitful in my life, that actually drive me in my goals or drive me to expand my personality and my passions rather than just doing this. And naturally, you will just slam that screen off your laptop, or you will just put your phone away and grab that basketball. Here is an example from a client here on this graph. I ask my clients every week to give me a score from 0 to 10 of what is their compulsion towards pornography this week, how much were they drawn towards pornography, how much pornography did they want to watch. And that's a score between 0 and 10, where 10 is really high and 0 is no pornography whatsoever. And so you can see that every little line on the horizontal line is 2 weeks. You can see that in the frame of 3 weeks, the cravings towards pornography first start rising, but then decrease, and then they decrease and decrease to the extent that the cravings drop to nearly 0. Again, we're not looking for a perfect 0. We're looking to get better. All right. So because the brain is like, this thing is really boring, I'm not really into that anymore. Then week on week on week on week, you find that you're moving away from pornography effortlessly. And this is what a healthy healing and recovery is based on, is to have a method that has steps associated to it that you can measure and that you can build block after block rather than to lose everything after a relapse. You can see in qualitative tapering, there is no relapse, okay? Because you're watching pornography still, but every time you watch pornography, instead of reinforcing the idea that pornography is amazing, you're reinforcing the idea that pornography is pretty boring and that you're not interested. And so over the course of 4, 6, 12 weeks, then in the end, you're like, you know what, this is actually not for me. Your brain has unconsciously registered that pornography is boring. And as a consequence, we have this testimony from one of my clients, for example. I've not orgasms. The last 2 times I watched pornography, I gave up midway because it was just too boring. And he says, got bored, which is success. When pornography is boring, then you're on your way to freedom. Okay, so in this video, we're only talking about the behavior. Watching pornography, not watching pornography, watching less pornography, watching more boring pornography. But this is just the behavior. In order to overcome pornography addiction or to quit pornography effectively, there are so many other things to work on to deal with this addiction. Behavior is just one out of the 6 pillars that I use for my therapy, for my clients to get better. So if you're curious, you can watch this video here about the 6 pillars of pornography addiction healing, or you can check out my therapy platform. I'll put the link in the description below.